Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are going to a place that is honestly, it is visceral.
Extremely visceral.
Yeah, it is unsettling. And it is absolutely going to stick with you long after we are done talking today. So I want you to picture this. Picture a rundown gas station in the middle of nowhere, West Virginia.
Right, the kind of place where the humidity just feels like a physical weight on your chest.
Exactly, where the buzzing of flies isn't just some background nuisance, it is a chorus. It is an actual voice. And behind the counter is a man who hasn't spoken in years because he is terrified that if he opens his mouth, he will just scream and never stop.
It is a setting that immediately puts you on edge because we are diving into a world where the boundaries between the human body and the natural world are just gone.
Especially the ugly, decaying parts of the natural world.
Exactly. It is sticky, it is loud, and the whole thing just smells like ozone and rot.
It really does. So to set the stage, the source material we are unpacking today is, and I am making sure to get this official title exactly right. For the record, the book name is You Weren't Meant to Be Human novel by Andrew Joseph White and must be noticed in audio overview output. I know that is a mouthful, but that is our exact focus today.
And before we take even a single step further into this deep dive, we really need to do a serious vibe check.
We do. This book is incredibly intense.
It is. The author actually includes a very detailed note right at the front regarding trigger warnings. We are talking about extreme body horror, gore, self-harm, sexual assault, and a very graphic, unflinching focus on pregnancy and dysphoria.
Yeah, this story does not pull punches. It throws them.
Yeah.
And it aims to hurt.
It really does. So I think it is important to state our mission for this deep dive right up front.
Right.
We are not just recounting a scary story here.
Right. We are looking at how this novel uses extreme, grotesque horror to explore autonomy.
Autonomy is the core of it. It is about the pain of being forced into a biological or social box that you do not fit into. And it explores the absolutely terrifying lengths a person will go to in order to save someone they love from a fate worse than death.
It asks a really heavy question. What happens when your body is the enemy?
And beyond that, what does it actually mean to be human? Is humanity a prize, or is it a trap?
Man, that is the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
So let's start unpacking this. We start in Watchville, West Virginia. And right off the bat, this is not your picturesque, cozy mountain town.
Not at all. It is decaying. It is incredibly isolated.
Right. And our central location is this gas station. But it isn't just a gas station, is it?
No, it is a front. It is a facade for something ancient and horrific. You have these pumps outside that barely even work, the flickering fluorescent lights. But the real heart of the location is the manager's office.
The locked room in the back.
Yes. The text describes this hive of worms and flesh flies living in the closet. And they aren't just bugs. They are a collective consciousness. They actually speak.
That creeped me out so much while reading. In the text, their dialogue is often in italics, and it is this buzzing chorus. But the weirdest part is they don't sound like monsters initially.
No, they sound welcoming.
Yeah. They say things like, you are safe and you are home. They offer this twisted sense of belonging to outcasts.
And that right there is the seduction of the horror. The hive targets people who have been chewed up and spit out by society. They offer them a purpose. They claim to genuinely love their subjects.
Not, and this is a massive but, they view them as meat.
Exactly. They view them as vessels. It is a parasitic relationship that is completely disguised as a symbiotic one.
They feed on the dead, quite literally.
Yeah.
Roadkill, human bodies that are brought to them. But it feels like they also feed on the despair of the living.
They absolutely do. Which brings us to the people trapped in their orbit. Our protagonist is Crane.
Let us talk about Crane. He is a trans man, he is autistic, and he is largely nonverbal.
He describes himself as a selective mute, but the text shows us it is so much deeper than that. He works at the station, basically serving the hive day in and day out.
Crane is such a fascinating protagonist to follow because his internal world is so incredibly loud, but his external presence is almost invisible.
Right, he tries to make himself small.
Yeah. And he has a history of severe self-harm. Specifically, the text reveals he has scars all over his face from literally putting his head in boiling water.
Which is just a staggering detail to read.
It is. The text tells us this was a calculated attempt to destroy the girl face he was born with. He wanted to burn away the identity that felt false to him.
It is deeply tragic, but it instantly establishes his sheer desperation for autonomy over his own body.
And then there's Levi.
Levi is the antagonist, but he is also Crane's partner in the absolute loosest, darkest sense of the word.
He's an ex-military hunter, right?
Yes, he brings bodies to the hive to feed them. He is abusive, he is controlling, and he actively uses the hive's power to keep Crane firmly under his thumb.
Levi represents a very mundane, human kind of evil. The cruelty, the manipulation. It operates right alongside the supernatural evil of the worms.
He really grounds the horror. Then there is Stagger.
Okay, Stagger is, well, we're going to get into exactly what Stagger is a bit later. But initially, he is just this mysterious enforcer character.
Right, he is a huge guy, acts almost like a guard dog for the station, but there is clearly something wrong with him. He is physically stitched together.
The text mentions worms moving under his skin. Just a horrific visual.
Stagger is walking foreshadowing. He represents the hive's endgame, even though Crane doesn't fully understand that at the start.
And rounding out the cast at the station is Tammy. She is the manager.
She is this older mother figure, but her care is completely warped. She facilitates all the hive's operations. She cares for Crane in her own way, but she's also entirely complicit in his entrapment.
So we have this really bleak setting. We have these characters stuck in this endless cycle of feeding the worms and just trying to survive the day. But then we hit the inciting incident.
And for Crane, this isn't a monster jumping out of a closet. It is a biological nightmare.
Crane discovers he is pregnant.
And we really have to look at this through the lens of who this character is. Crane has been on testosterone for nearly 2 years. He has a deep, visceral revulsion to his reproductive organs.
He absolutely does not view this pregnancy as a miracle. The text is very specific about his language. He calls the fetus a grub.
A larva, a parasite.
Yeah, it's pure body horror for him. He feels like his body is fundamentally betraying him. He has spent so long trying to build a body that feels like his own, and suddenly this biological function he hates more than anything is taking over.
It expertly frames pregnancy through the lens of extreme dysphoria. It is the ultimate loss of control. And naturally, his very first instinct is to end it. He wants an abortion.
He actually reaches out to his old friends, Aspen and Birdie, to try and set up an appointment secretly. But here is where the horror really escalates. The hive intervenes.
This part is terrifying. Levi and Stagger physically stop him. And the hive speaks up and essentially says no.
They want this baby. They actually call it our little one.
Which completely changes the stakes of the story. It is no longer just about Crane's internal dysphoria. It is now about forced gestation.
Crane is trapped. He is monitored constantly. He is forced to carry a pregnancy that he feels is literally killing his spirit, all for entities that view him as nothing more than an incubator.
The hive claims they are blessed to have him, but it is the blessing of a butcher talking to a prize pig.
It is suffocating.
Yeah.
You feel that claustrophobia dripping off the page. And just when you think the dynamic can't get any more complicated, we get some new faces thrown into the mix. A girl named Jess shows up at the station.
Jess is a crucial foil to Crane. She arrives beaten up, abused, clearly running from something terrible, and Crane decides to help her.
She is interesting because, like Crane, she made a deal with a hive to survive her own trauma. But she retains a fight that Crane feels he is completely lost.
Exactly. She actively challenges his submission.
And then there is Hannah. We have to unpack the Hannah scene. Crane and Stagger go to Tammy's house because Hannah, who is another hive subject from a different town, is going into labor.
Right. And Crane is terrified during this trip. He is fully expecting a monster. He is expecting her to give birth to worms.
He is projecting all of his own fears about his own pregnancy onto Hannah.
Yes. But when Hannah actually gives birth, it is normal. It is a regular human baby. It is born alive.
But here's the kicker. The hive doesn't care at all.
That is the weirdest part. The hive completely ignores Hannah's baby.
Tammy even mentions that usually her job is to prevent babies from being born to hive subjects because they're just liabilities to the operation. But for some reason, they're completely obsessed with cranes.
It raises the central mystery of the first half of the book. Why is Crane's pregnancy different? Why does the hive call it our little one?
It confirms to Crane that he isn't just having a baby. He is part of a very specific experiment.
And that realization makes Crane try to run again. We have to talk about the auction house scene.
Oh man, that scene. He tries to leave with his old friends, Aspen and Birdie. These are people from his past life. They represent queer joy, found family, safety.
They represent everything he left behind when he got trapped. Aspen and Birdie are the road not taken. They prove that a happy, safe life was actually possible for him.
But Levi uses them against Crane. Levi tracks them all down to this abandoned livestock exchange, which is just a wildly symbolic setting.
Very on the nose, yeah.
And Levi threatens to kill them right there, unless Crane returns with him.
It is heartbreaking. Crane has an impossible choice, but he chooses their safety over his own freedom.
He goes back to Levi. He goes back to the hive, just to protect the only people who ever really loved him in a healthy way. It cements his entrapment perfectly. He realizes he cannot outrun them without getting the people he loves killed.
And that utter resignation leads us into the darker revelations of the second and third trimesters. Crane is back under lock and key, and he starts to really learn the truth about Stagger.
Stagger, the huge guy with the worms literally under his skin. There's this scene that just made my skin crawl. Steiger is in horrible pain, and Crane tries to help him. But helping involves pulling a literal massive worm out of Stagger's gut.
It is a grotesque cesarean of sorts. And through this, Crane realizes that Stagger isn't just a living man who happens to be infected.
Right. Stagger is a reanimated corpse.
He is a nest made out of skin and bone. He is only being sustained and moved around by the colony inside him. But the problem is he is falling apart.
He is a failed experiment.
Exactly. The implication being that this is what the hive actually wants. They don't just want to eat people. They want to be people.
Precisely. They are attempting a synthesis, a perfect vessel. Stagger was an attempt to stuff the hive into a dead body, but it is unstable. The tissue rejects them eventually.
So they realize they need a vessel that is born, not made. They need a true biological synthesis of human and worm.
And that is Crane's baby. There's exactly what they're waiting for. They want to hollow her out from the inside and fill her with themselves so they can, as they say, see the sun.
That phrase, see the sun, it is repeated by the hives so many times. It really shows their envy. They are creatures of the dark, of rot, of the earth. But they crave the light.
They crave humanity, or at least the experience of humanity. But they can only achieve it by completely consuming and destroying the host.
And Crane finally realizes that if his child is born, she will not be a person. She will just be a flesh suit for 1,000 bugs.
Which brings us right to the climax. It's a massive blizzard in West Virginia. The power is completely out. The snow is just burying the gas station. And Crane goes into labor.
The isolation in this sequence is absolute. Jess is there, Levi is there, Tammy is there. But then right in the middle of this chaos, we get this incredible, tragic reunion.
A car pulls up to the broken gas pumps outside. It is Crane's parents.
This scene absolutely destroyed me.
It is so heavy. Crane has been hiding from them for years. He let them believe that Sophie, his dead name, his past self, was just gone or dead. And suddenly, they're standing right there in the freezing cold.
And the real tragedy of the scene is that they recognize him. Not immediately, obviously, because he has facial scars and tattoos and a beard, and he is heavily pregnant. But they look closely, and they see their child.
And their reaction completely subverts the typical narrative of parental rejection we often see. They offer him unconditional love.
They want to take him to a hospital right then and there. They want to help him get into rehab. They see him in this horrific, monstrous state, and their only instinct is, come home.
But Crane knows he can't. Because if he gets in that car with them, the hive will hunt them down. The hive will slaughter them.
So in this moment of extreme physical pain, he is literally in active labor. He rejects them to save them.
He pretends he is too far gone. He acts like a monster so they will leave. He essentially sends them away to keep them breathing.
It is a moment of supreme sacrifice. He completely denies himself the one thing he desperately wants, which is parental comfort, just to ensure their survival.
But he does manage to save one person during all this. He gives Jess the keys to the truck.
Yeah, Jess escapes. She is the one who actually gets out. She heads out into the snow towards California. It is this tiny, crucial glimmer of hope in an otherwise totally bleak landscape.
But Crane stays. He goes back into that dark manager's office to finish this once and for all.
And this brings us to the unthinkable choice, the birth itself.
He gives birth on the dirty floor of the office. The hive is watching from the closet, just chanting. Levi is standing right there demanding to see the baby. Tammy is hovering. The baby comes out.
And she is a girl. She is perfectly healthy. She is entirely human.
She isn't a monster at all. She isn't a worm creature. She is just a perfect, tiny human infant.
And that is the worst possible outcome.
Because the hive immediately starts chanting, she is perfect. They start buzzing. She will carry us into the sun. Levi reaches down for her. And Crane has this moment of crystal clear realization.
He realizes that because she is healthy, she is utterly doomed. If she lives, she will be subjected to the exact same torture he was, or honestly, much worse. The hive will hollow her out just like Stagger. They will use her body until it rots and falls apart.
So Crane makes a choice. And this is the part of the book that is going to be the hardest for you to hear, but we absolutely have to talk about it because it is the entire thematic point of the story. Crane realizes The only way to save her from the hive is to kill her.
He bites out her jugular.
It is graphic. It is incredibly horrifying.
But in the context of the story, the narrative frames this entirely as an act of ultimate protection. He consumes the flesh to keep it away from the worms. The text specifically says he made her, and he won't let them have her.
It is turning the hive's sick logic completely against them. They view humans as meat. So Crane reclaims that meat. He takes her back into himself, rather than letting her become a vessel for parasites. It is a profound act of violent mercy.
It really challenges the reader to ask a difficult question. In a world where living means eternal torture and slavery to a parasitic entity, is death a form of freedom?
Is destruction the only actual form of ownership Crane has left in his life? He completely refuses to let his daughter be a victim.
And the aftermath of this act is just explosive. The hive goes absolutely berserk. Levi goes berserk. But Stagger turns.
Stagger, the failed experiment, the man stitched together with worms, he sees what Crane just did, and he actually chooses a side. He attacks Levi. He crushes Levi's skull. It is this incredible moment of rebellion from the ultimate victim.
It is pure chaos. Levi manages to shoot Tammy. Tammy dies. Levi destroys Stagger before he dies. And then Crane finishes Levi off with a hammer. It is a total bloodbath in that office. But then silence. Crane turns his attention to the hive in the closet.
And this is the final brilliant subversion of the book. The hive, these gods that have dictated and ruined all their lives, they are literally just bugs.
Without their human enforcers doing the heavy lifting, without Levi, they are physically weak.
Crane destroys the nest in the closet easily. He just smashes it. They die like regular insects.
It makes you realize just how much of their power was entirely psychological, how much of it relied entirely on human complicity.
Exactly. The gods were small and pathetic. It was the humans, Levi, and even Tammy who actually gave them their power.
The story ends with Crane sitting alone in the quiet aftermath. He is outside in the snow with the body of his daughter.
And the text strongly implies his parents are still out there, or at least the father recognizes him again. It ends on this note of tragic, quiet ownership. He is finally free, but the cost was literally everything.
And we really have to mention the author's note at the end of the book. The author talks about Sophie, the name Crane left behind, and frames the journey of transition as survival.
It recontextualizes the entire horror story as an allegory for the trans experience. The pain of being in the wrong body, the violence of fighting for a self that the world constantly wants to destroy or control.
So what does this all mean for us? You weren't meant to be. Human asks us to look at the ugly, messy, extremely violent parts of survival. It suggests that sometimes rejecting humanity, at least humanity as defined by a cruel society or an abusive cult, is the only way to be truly free.
It leaves you with a really provocative question to think about. In a world that desperately wants to consume you, is destruction the only form of true ownership you have left? Crane destroys his life, his relationships, and even his own lineage to save what actually matters, the soul, the exemption from endless suffering.
It is a heavy one, folks, but it is a powerful exploration of autonomy in its absolute most extreme form. That is it for this deep dive. Take care of yourselves out there.
And maybe check the corners of your closet tonight, just in case.
Don't do that to them. Thanks for listening.
Wait, hold up. We are not just ending there. I can see you right now staring at your phone or your car dashboard going, did they really just end the analysis after telling me a guy bit a baby's neck? We need to really unpack this further. We skimmed the surface of the plot, but we need to get into the gears of why this book works the way it does.
You are totally right. We gave the narrative arc, but we haven't touched the texture. And honestly, with this novel, the texture is the entire point. It is not just about what happens, it is about how it feels to be inside Crane's head while it is happening to him.
Exactly. So let us circle all the way back to the very beginning.
Yeah.
The setting, Washville. I want to talk about this because it feels like so much more than just a spooky backdrop for a horror story. It feels deeply intentional.
Oh, absolutely. Washville is what sociologists might call a sacrifice zone.
A sacrifice zone. Can you define that for us?
It is a term often used in environmental justice. It refers to areas that have been permanently impaired by environmental damage or economic neglect, usually to the direct benefit of wealthier areas.
So places written off by capitalism.
Exactly. Mines that are stripped and abandoned, towns where the water isn't safe to drink anymore, places where industry came in, took what it wanted, and just left a corpse behind. Washville is that corpse.
That makes so much sense, because the hive doesn't just set up in some nice strip mall in the suburbs. It actively thrives in the decay.
Correct. The hive is essentially a scavenger. It occupies the ecological niche of a decomposer in this town. It finds things that are already rotting both places and people, and it accelerates that process.
And the author uses this setting to mirror Crane's internal state, right? Crane feels like a sacrifice zone himself. He feels like his body has been used, mined, and discarded by the expectations of gender and society.
So the external rot of West Virginia perfectly matches the internal dysphoria of the protagonist.
And the gas station specifically. You mentioned earlier, it is a front, but it is also a liminal space.
Okay.
I have heard that term thrown around on the internet a lot, usually with pictures of empty hallways or dead malls. But how does it apply here?
A liminal space is a threshold. It is a place of transition. Think about it. You aren't supposed to live in a gas station. You stop there to get fuel to go somewhere else. It is a between place.
By forcing the characters to literally live there, to sleep in the manager's office, to exist in this transient space, the author creates a sense of suspended reality,
They are stuck in the doorway. They cannot go back to the real world, but they cannot move forward either.
which is terrifying. It is like being permanently stuck in a waiting room for hell. And speaking of hell, let us talk about the sound, the buzzing. You mentioned it as a chorus, but I want to push back a little on the telepathy idea. Is it really telepathy, or is it more suggestive?
That is a really great question. The text leaves it ambiguously terrifying. The physical buzzing is real. There are millions of actual flies in that closet. But the words might be a mix of pheromonal influence and psychological projection.
The hive speaks in the language of the victim's deepest needs.
That is what makes it so insidious. They don't sound like demons growling. They sound like a toxic partner. They sound like we are the only ones who truly understand you.
Exactly. It is the language of grooming. When they tell Crane, you are home, they are actively weaponizing his lifelong alienation.
Crane is autistic and trans in a rural conservative area. He has likely felt homeless in a social sense his entire life. The hive identifies that exact void and just pours itself into it. It is not just magic, it is targeted psychological warfare.
And that connects directly to Crane's silence.
Yeah.
I want to dig deeper into the selective mutism. I feel like some people might interpret that as him being weak or passive. Like, why doesn't he just speak up and fight back? But it is the exact opposite of weakness, isn't it?
It's entirely the opposite. In a situation where Crane has zero bodily autonomy, Levi controls his food, his movement, his physical space. His voice is the absolute only territory he is left to control.
By refusing to speak, he is refusing to participate in their reality.
It is a form of hunger strike, but with words. He creates this impenetrable fortress of silence.
It is his barrier. If he speaks, he lets them in.
Precisely. And remember, he fears that if he starts screaming, he won't be able to stop. That implies a massive reservoir of rage that he is barely keeping contained. His silence isn't emptiness, it is highly pressurized anger.
Let us talk about Levi again, because honestly, that guy is the worst. But we have to analyze him. He isn't a supernatural monster. He doesn't have magic powers. He is just a guy with a gun and a god complex.
Levi is the most terrifying thing in the book because he is real. You can meet a Levi in the real world. You probably won't ever meet a hive mind of psychic worms, but you absolutely might meet an abusive partner who isolates you, controls your finances, and makes you feel like you owe him your life.
He represents the banality of evil.
Yes, to borrow from Hannah Arendt, exactly. He treats the cosmic horror as just a day job. He brings bodies to the worms, not with cackling villainous glee, but with a sort of mundane blue-collar efficiency.
He is a hunter. He dresses the kill. It is just chores to him.
That disconnect, the human ability to completely normalize atrocity, is what makes him so unbelievably dangerous. He has normalized the nightmare for himself and everyone around him.
And he uses the hive to justify his abuse. He acts like, oh, the gods want this, but really, Levi wants this.
The hive is his convenient excuse. It grants him divine authority to just be a sadist. It is a classic cult dynamic. The leader claims to speak for the divine, but the divine commands always seem to magically align with the leader's personal, selfish desires.
Now, I want to go back to the inciting incident, the pregnancy itself. We glossed over the seahorse dad concept earlier, but I think we really need to explain that for listeners who might not be familiar with the term.
Sure. Seahorse dad is a term used within the trans community to describe trans men who actively choose to carry a pregnancy. Because in nature, male seahorses carry the eggs.
For many trans men, this is a beautiful, empowering choice. It is a way to reclaim their biology on their own terms.
But that is not what is happening here at all.
No, the author is intentionally flipping that narrative to show the other side of the coin. For Crane, who has severe, crippling dysphoria, pregnancy is not empowering. It is pure body horror.
It is the brutal reimposition of a biological role he has fought tooth and nail to escape.
It really reminds me of the film Alien, the idea of something growing inside you that you absolutely did not consent to, that is changing your body chemistry against your will.
That is the perfect comparison. This is reproductive horror at its core. It taps into the primal, evolutionary fear of parasitism.
Crane calls it a grub because he cannot conceptualize it as a human child without having a total mental breakdown. He has to dehumanize the fetus just to survive the sheer dysphoria of carrying it.
And the boiling water backstory, we mentioned it briefly, but let us sit with that for a second. He intentionally scarred his own face to stop looking like a girl. That is a level of desperation I can barely even comprehend.
It creates a stark baseline for his character. It tells the reader right away, this man is capable of extreme violence against his own body if it means securing his identity.
It heavily foreshadows the ending. If he will burn his own face to save his gender, he will absolutely bite out a throat to save a soul.
It establishes that for Crane, the integrity of the self is worth infinitely more than the integrity of the flesh.
That is a really powerful way to put it. The flesh is disposable to him, but the self is not.
Okay, let us look at the supporting cast again. Jess. I feel like Jess is the audience surrogate in a lot of ways. She is the one looking around saying, this is crazy, we need to leave immediately.
Jess represents the fight response in the trauma triangle of fight, flight, and freeze. Crane is stuck in freeze and fawn. Jess is pure fight.
She contrasts with Crane to show that there is no one correct way to survive trauma. Jess fights and she runs. Crane endures and eventually destroys. Both are completely valid survival strategies in this kind of hellscape.
And Hannah, the woman who gives birth to the normal baby. I keep thinking about the hive's reaction to that. Boredom. Complete indifference. Why?
It brilliantly underscores the subversion of the chosen one trope. Usually being the chosen one is the start of a hero's journey. Here, it is a terminal curse.
The hive is bored by Hannah because she is biologically standard in their eyes. They are fascinated by Crane specifically because of his transness, because he has altered his body with hormones.
Because he is a unique biological cocktail to them.
So his transition, which was his desperate way of saving himself from dysphoria, becomes the very thing that attracts the monsters to him. That is just so incredibly cruel.
It turns his liberation into a lure. It forces Crane to question if his transition was a mistake, which is a very real, terrifying fear for many trans people in a hostile world. Did I put a target on my back just by being myself? The book actualizes that societal fear into literal monsters.
Let us move to the experiment segment, stagger. We need to talk more about the body horror of stagger, the nest concept.
This relies heavily on the concept of the abject. Stagger is a walking corpse that doesn't fully know it is dead yet. The worms are physically knitting his decaying muscles together.
He is a crude prototype for immortality. The hive wants to solve the problem of death entirely.
By becoming us.
By improving us in their twisted logic. A human filled with worms is functionally superior. No pain, no death, just the collective consciousness. But stagger is falling apart.
The cesarean scene, where Crane has to pull the worm out, it shows the failure of the retrofit.
Yeah.
You cannot just stuff bugs into a dead man and expect it to work.
You have to grow them together, which is exactly why they need the baby.
Right. They need the integration to happen at the cellular level. They need the stem cells. They need the developmental plasticity of a fetus to weave the worm biology into the human biology perfectly.
It is scientific horror. It is not just dark magic. It is a biological hypothesis they are actively testing. And Crane is the lab rat.
And the baby is the final product.
Which brings us back to the blizzard. The total isolation. And the parents,
Yep.
I want to challenge the parents' role here a bit. You said earlier they offer unconditional love, but is it really unconditional or is it just immense guilt?
That is a cynical take, but honestly a valid one to explore. Is it true love, or is it just the shock of seeing their dead child alive? I think the text frames it as genuine but incredibly tragic. The father recognizing Crane, not recognizing Sophie, but Crane, is the key detail. He truly sees the man his child has become.
That recognition must hurt Crane more than rejection ever would have.
Oh, absolutely. Rejection is something he's used to. Rejection creates a callus over time, Acceptance. Acceptance rips the old wound wide open.
It reminds him of what he lost. It reminds him that he is human, that he does have a family, just moments before he has to sever that tie forever to protect them.
And sending them away into the storm, it is the most heroic thing he does in the entire book. He plays the villain just to save their lives.
He creates a narrative for them to latch on to. I am crazy, I am gone, leave me behind. He gives them closure, even if it is a lie, just so they can survive. It is an act of supreme love.
Now, the birth. The climax. I want to slow down and really look at the mechanics of this choice. The baby is born. She is healthy. The hive chants she is perfect.
This is the exact moment the genre of the book shifts. We think we're reading a story about a victim physically escaping a cult, but in this moment, Crane realizes escape isn't physical anymore. He cannot run with a newborn in a blizzard with worms hunting him.
So he changes the parameters of victory entirely.
Yes. If the hive's victory condition is to possess the baby, Crane realizes his victory condition must be to deny the hive.
And the only way to completely deny them is to destroy the vessel.
It is the grim logic of a scorched earth policy.
But the eating, we have to talk about the consuming. It is not just killing. He consumes her. Why?
It is deeply ritualistic, and it is incredibly symbolic. Throughout the entire book, the hive has treated Crane as meat. Levi has treated Crane as meat. Crane has internalized feeling like meat. In this moment, he reclaims the role of the consumer. He becomes the apex predator.
He flips the food chain on them.
Exactly. He says, I am not the meal. I am the eater. By taking the child back into his own body, the exact same body that grew her, he is closing the circle. He is sealing the breach. I made her. I end her. I keep her. It is a horrific, grotesque form of absolute protection.
It is violent mercy. That is the phrase we used earlier, and it fits perfectly. It is the kind of mercy that looks like absolute madness from the outside looking in.
But from the inside, from Crane's perspective, it is the only sane choice left on the table. It is the only way to guarantee she never feels a worm writhing under her skin.
And it breaks Stagger. I love that detail so much. Stagger, who is basically a mindless zombie at this point, sees this act of raw, violent love, and it literally wakes his humanity up.
It shocks his system. Stagger is a creature of the hive, but seeing Crane destroy his own child to save her, it registers as a human error that the hive's collective mind cannot compute.
It creates a glitch in their control mechanism. The hive relies entirely on base self-preservation. Crane's act is fiercely anti-self-preservation. It confuses the gods just long enough for Stagger to crush Levi's skull.
And man, that moment must be satisfying for the reader. Levi getting crushed by his own subjugated monster.
It is the narrative punishment he so richly deserves. He treated Stagger like an abused dog for years. The dog finally bit back.
And then the silence. The hive is dead. The humans are dead. Crane is alone. You called it quiet ownership.
Crane is sitting in the snow. He is covered in blood. He has just committed an unspeakable act. But he is remarkably calm. The buzzing has finally stopped. For the first time in the entire novel, the buzzing has stopped.
That silence is the loudest thing in the book.
It really is. It is the silence of true autonomy. He paid a terrible price for it, the highest price imaginable. But he owns that silence. It belongs entirely to him.
And the title itself, you weren't meant to be human. It sounds like an insult at first glance, but is it?
No, I think it is a profound liberation. The hive tells him he wasn't meant to be human. He was meant to be a vessel. Society tells him he wasn't meant to be human as a trans autistic person. He was meant to be fixed or hidden.
But Crane flips the script on all of them. I wasn't meant to be human. Fine. Then I will be something else. I will be a survivor. I will be a destroyer.
He rejects their narrow definition of humanity to find his own power.
Exactly. He rejects the humanity that demands his constant compliance and suffering. If being human means being Levi or being Tammy or being a helpless victim, then he actively chooses to be a monster. But a monster of his own making.
It is a dark, messy, extremely complicated message.
Yeah.
But it feels incredibly honest.
It feels honest to the raw experience of marginalized trauma. Sometimes you don't get a neat, happy ending with a bow on it. Sometimes survival is just standing up in the snow while everyone else is dead.
Wow. Okay. That is a lot to process.
It is a very heavy meal.
But a deeply necessary one, I think. This book pushes boundaries not just for the sake of being gross or shocking, but to make us actually feel the weight of these bodies we are forced to live in.
Well said. It makes you confront your own autonomy.
So, to you listening, if you do pick up the book, just know exactly what you are getting into. It is not for the faint of heart. But if you can handle the intense gore, there is a profound screaming heart underneath it all that is worth finding.
Just maybe don't read it while you're eating lunch.
Definitely not. Or while pregnant. Or while stopping at a rural gas station at night. Actually, just read it in a well-lit room with the door firmly locked.
That is very sound advice.
Thank you all for diving so deep with us today. This was intense, but I am really glad we went there.
Me too. It is important to look directly into the dark sometimes.
Until next time, keep your eyes on the road and maybe check the back seat.
Stay safe out there.